This week on the Music Biz Weekly podcast, we talk all about festivals. Festivals in Europe versus festivals in the US, festivals in Brazil, South America versus the US, and ultimately the community that is built up, especially in rock metal, but the importance of your fans community that they're part of, the genre that they're part of, and why that's so important for you to recognize.
Welcome to the Music Biz Weekly podcast, celebrating over 15 years and over 600 weekly episodes, where Michael Brandvold and Blasko, two longtime music industry pros, discuss the very latest trends, tools and tactics that you need to succeed in this new music business.
The Music Biz Weekly podcast has moved to a brand new YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss future episodes. Visit www.musicbizweeklypodcast.com, subscribe on YouTube, follow and rate us on Spotify, subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. We appreciate your support.
Hey, Music Biz Weekly podcast. You got Mike, you got Blasko. We're back. Blasko, you were on the road end of last week.
Yeah, a lot of traveling.
You've been at some festivals and
it's been a busy middle, third of the year. It's been good. Yeah, just a lot of festivals, a lot of bands on tour. And so, just kind of out there supporting, rubbing elbows, kissing babies, patting heads, doing the thing. Doing the networking thing, So, but it's been great.
You know what? Maybe we can put in our list of ideas for future topics, festivals. Because you and I basically live and run in the rock metal world. There's a huge contrasting difference between festivals in Europe when it comes to metal and festivals in the US. And that could be a good future topic, because I know I get so many bands like, how can we get into festivals in the US? I'm like, well, it's not like playing festivals over in Europe.
Yeah, there's far fewer, I think, here, but now it's really starting to kind of pick up in terms of just the volume of them. And they've extended them, from 3 days into 4 days. And it's, it's hot, there's real value for the dollar. I mean, these promoters do a really good job at putting great headliners, stacking the undercard, and just making it a real value for the concert goer. And there was probably a couple of pages borrowed from European promoters and concert goers of how they do things over there and whatnot. And
they've got it so down over in Europe. I mean, and this is kind of a diversion from what we really want to talk about. But I remember as a kid in the early 80s, Donington, that was Holy Land. To growing up in Minnesota, I was well aware of Donington, the Donington Festival. And it was just like, God, to be able to go to Donington just once and experience that was like what every little metalhead wanted to do. And I kind of feel like, now Donington by that name isn't around anymore. It kind of evolved into Download. But they kind of wrote the book, didn't they?
Yeah. I feel like that kind of really I don't know if it's true, but it kind of feels like that really sort of put things on the map. Here in the US was like, I think the US Festival was really
Festival. Yeah. And you remember, I mean, this is turning into a whole discussion. Remember when they tried to do the Monsters of Rock tour here in the US? Like, well, let's take Donington and let's put it on the road in the US. And you're just like, dude, it's a cool bill, but it ain't Donington. It's just not, it didn't even approach the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's kind of interesting is that just the culture of heavy metal is so much different in Europe, because these festivals that are here, like they're not the big ones that we're talking about. These are more like hard rock festivals. But just the culture of like the Hellfest, the download,
Vakken.
the Vakken, the things of that nature that are strictly like heavy metal adjacent. But just the culture of the people that go there, like if you ever have the opportunity to go, it's just a completely different dynamic of concert goer. It's really interesting.
It really is. I mean, you know what? Let's just continue this discussion. We'll take our original topic and we'll put that for when we record on the next episode, because it was a good topic. But yeah, you're right. All since the early 80s, I had a pen pal in Birmingham, England, and I still know him very well online. And, he would go to every Donington festival over there during the 80s and send me pictures. And I was more not of pictures of the performance, pictures of the community. And, the camping out in tents in this big field of mud for 3 days, 4 days. I mean, it was just like an incredible community was created. And I had the opportunity in the late 80s to go over. I visited him. And it was the year that Donington wasn't being held because there was the death during the Guns N' Roses concert. But they replaced in the same location with the Milton Keynes Festival. And I don't know, who was it? It was, I can't remember the exact order, but it was like Bon Jovi, Skid Row, Vixen, Europe. Maybe that was it, but I don't remember the exact order. And I just remember walking into this event going, holy crap, this is just a ginormous open field that's in the shape of a bowl. And there had to be like 60,000 people. It's as general admission can be. And I was just like, dude, I haven't been around this long enough to know I'm not venturing into the middle of that mob. I mean, it's not like, it wasn't a mosh pit by any means, but I didn't know what to expect. I was, coming from the US where you're like, oh yeah, we're going to go see a band in the arena and you've got reserved seats and go in this way and out that way. It was just a whole nother experience being in a festival in Europe. And it's hard to explain unless you've actually experienced it.
Yeah, I remember it was a download a few years ago, and I was kind of going in and out of there over the course of the weekend. And typically I stay in a place where it's convenient enough to where I can kind of get dropped off in the back through the artist area or enter in, with a band on their bus or whatever, whichever way they're traveling. And this particular day, it was a Sunday. So it was the festival was wrapping up, and it had rained all weekend, which is hilariously typical for download.
And by rain you mean a mud pit of rain.
Yes, it typically the weather is really bad at download. That's how I learned what wellies were. Wellies are like those big rubber boots that people wear that go up to about your knee, and those are very commonplace, during download.
May not look very metal, but it's pretty practical.
It's pretty practical. But case in point is that this is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. People get there on Wednesday that are camping there throughout the weekend. And like I said, it's just a completely different culture.
And a lot of drinking. Oh,
yes. This is in the UK, right? Drinking is part of the culture. But case in point is this particular Sunday, I got dropped off at the front of the arena or, the venue. And I was entering in through the front entrance for the typical audience entrance. And it was Sunday, sort of, early midday. And so a lot of people were starting to make their trek out of there after they had been camping there through this completely horrendous weather-ridden, mud, wet storm, rainstorm throughout the weekend. And so I was walking against them. I was swimming upstream of me going into the venue and them leaving the venue. And they had all their gear with them. It was muddy. They were muddy. They were damp. They were, seemingly miserable, but like maybe they weren't or whatever, but they had been there all weekend, drinking, partying, watching metal bands in the rain with their hoods on and, just surviving. And I'm walking against them and I'm looking at all of them as damp and miserable as they all kind of appeared to look. And I was like, thinking to myself, I was like, we have nothing in common, right? Like we have heavy metal in common, but the idea of being here camped out in the rain for 4 days, I can't even imagine doing that. But I appreciate the hell out of every single one of you because this is why we have what we have. And it is amazing that these people endure just for the sake of listening and seeing their favorite metal band for whether it's the first or the 10th time. And it's just so amazing that the culture over there endures what they do just for the strength of heavy metal, kind of specifically. And as much as I have nothing common with them in terms of how I will sort of appreciate that environment, man, I respect the hell out of every single one of them. And we couldn't be here without them, but it was just a funny story.
I know. I thought you were going to go like, I came in the front entrance and it's like, I see 50,000 people. I'm like, there's no way I'm getting to the backstage from this side of the stage.
No. I got those places kind of mapped out. It was fine, but it was just sort of seeing that look on these people's faces from a different perspective, and really just so admiring their endurance.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people need to every once in a while step back and appreciate the fan base that's around them, or the genre of fans that are around them, and not take it for granted, especially if you're in the US, because the way live music is presented and consumed in the US is very much different than how it is rest of the world, especially Europe. Mm-hmm. And that appreciation, I think, allows you to end up with where you are of like, hey, I may not ever want to sit out in a muddy field watching any band, but I completely appreciate, love, and have the utmost respect for these fans who will consume their live music in that manner. And to some extent, doesn't matter who the band is, they're consuming the genre of heavy metal. And you might be a performer in some other genre. I think you've got to take a moment and look and go, yeah, I mean, hey, I might be coming in on a bus, or I might be, staying at a 5-star hotel, being helicoptered into the festival. There's other people that, I can't say here in the US people literally camp out in mud pits like they do in Europe, because I think we all know now over the recent years, the first sign of any bad rain, festivals are postponed. They clear the stage. They tell everybody to leave the venue, and then they let them come back in. It's like, I couldn't ever imagine that happening at Download or Vakken or any place like that. Do you think you're going to tell 75,000 metalheads ooh, it's a little bit of thunder and lightning and rain here. You're going to have to leave. They've been sleeping in that for 3 days.
Yeah, no, no, sir. Yeah, that was I was at a Lollapalooza in Chicago once, and that happened to us. We were there just kind of hanging out, wasn't playing or anything, just kind of hanging out, seeing bands, and that happened, and we got evacuated. And yes, I don't know, 60, 70,000 people all have to leave the venue, and you kind of make your way over to the hotel across the street and until it clears up, and then they let you come back. And we came back. You know, I was just recently at Welcome to Rockville, which is in Daytona Beach,
Florida.
Florida. Yeah. And that happened there too.
I was gonna say, I thought it happened there, didn't it?
Yeah, it happened. It was 4 days long. The first day was fine, but the other three, Black Veil Brides was actually playing, and they had to shut it down. And they were like 3-4 songs into their set, and their set got shut down, and everyone had to evacuate, and no one came back for 3 hours.
When something like that happens, are they evacuating the band, crew, management? Do you all have to leave the venue, or are you allowed to just kind of hang back in the dressing room trailers?
Yeah, people go to catering. Like, you just have to shelter in place whenever that happens. Yeah, they just want people to get shelter and stay out of the way of lightning. It's not the rain or the thunder that is the issue. It's the lightning that's the problem.
Yeah, and when you're out in a big flat open area as a fan, you're the highest point out there.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You know, let me ask you. I mean, clearly Europe has embraced the genre of heavy metal. I feel like longer and more devoted than the US has, especially when it comes to festivals. I mean, there's not just one or two festivals in Europe. I mean, there's lots of hard rock metal bands plan a summer tour every year throughout Europe. There can be 3 festivals in a country the size of Germany, 4 festivals. Sweden can have 3. Why do you think? Does it go all the way back to how Europe embraced the new wave of British heavy metal? Did that somehow stay within their culture? What do you think about that?
I feel like that's probably a pretty right on hypothesis. I feel like, the origin of it really kind of permeates from there. And yes, I believe it is part of the DNA of the culture is actually, heavy metal. The origination story for most of it is there. And just a lot of bands originate from there as well. So yeah, I got to think too. And I also would estimate too that it's not just the band as much as it's the culture of the community of people in heavy metal, and this being a destination, because I don't know how many of these things you've been to, but they, by and large, are not easy places to get to.
No, they're out in the middle of. I mean, you need a huge empty field for 75,000 people. You're not in the middle of a downtown.
When I flew to the Daytona Beach one, I flew into Daytona Beach. I got an Uber that took me to my hotel that was like 5 minutes away. And then I walked 10 minutes across the street to walk into the festival. Like, that's how convenient just as an example of one of our US festivals is, right? Like, the airport is there, the hotel is there.
Do you think Americans expect that?
Look, I mean, I don't know. There's probably others that are less convenient than that one. But the point of it is that in Europe, for instance, whenever I'm going to download here in a couple of weeks, like, there's so many different options that are all very kind of complicated. Whereas like I have to fly into London and then I got to take a train for 2 hours to like another city to then get the hotel. And that's like 15 minutes away from it. And then I got to try and get a ride there. It's like, it's very convoluted and out of the way. And it's very planes, trains, and automobiles to get to a lot of these places, to where if you're not rolling in with a band that's playing on a day, it's as as an innocent bystander, it's relatively and if you don't speak the language, right, like
Yeah.
it's relatively difficult to get into these things. But I don't know, the long-winded point is I believe it's just the community and the culture of all things heavy metal and heavy metal festivals is just ingrained in the DNA of it within these countries.
Do you think the fans, especially over in Europe, have never outgrown the genre of heavy metal? They're not as concerned about what's the latest, hottest band right now. They have lifelong devotion to their bands, and they have a lifelong devotion to any band that's kind of in that genre. Where over here in the US, there's a lot more, well, what's hot this summer?
Yes. I do believe that the lifers, the lifelong metalheads, the guys that will spend days, weeks, months crafting their battle vests, this is a different league of fandom. And yes, I also do think that those legacy bands like Iron Maiden is like religion,
Yeah.
like over there. It's very different over here in that respect.
And I suspect that kind of is why. I mean, I remember back in the early '80s. I don't know how many concerts I went to here in the U.S. where, like, somebody like Saxon was one of the second or third bands on an arena tour bill, whether they were opening for Cheap Trick or Molly Hatchet or somebody like that, and yet they never really cracked the U.S. market. They were always known, but they were always kind of known in the underground world of the U.S. market. Where over in Europe, I mean, Saxon goes out and tours, plays festivals, does everything. I mean, we can go through all sorts of bands. It's like, why didn't Slade happen here? But Slade is like huge there. Status Quo. I mean, we can go down all of the bands that just, geez, even the Sweet. Somebody like the Sweet, which so many bands say, hey, I picked up a guitar. I'm in a band because of somebody like the Sweet or the Slade. But those bands couldn't do a tour here outside of a club level tour. And over there, they can do much more than that, and they can keep doing that. I guess it's because the fan base over there, again, has never walked away from it, has always supported it, has always loved it. Hasn't, hey, Saxon's done, a dozen albums since my absolute favorite album, and none of them have never been as good as that one, but I still love the band and I will still go see them every day. We're over here, it's sort of like you're judged by your last album, your last tour, your last whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's, someone smarter than me probably has a whole reasoning behind how things translate across ocean flights, which I've never kind of really done much of a deep dive into. We kind of just accept it for what it is, where some bands are equally as successful on multiple continents, and some bands just are successful on their home turf and it really doesn't translate outside of that. And then other bands like could be a decent size on their home turf, but yet still do better business in other territories. It's there's you can't set your watch to it. No one thing where you go like, oh, it must be because of this is why this works here but not here. I've never seen a repeating pattern that could make some type of justification where you could predict why something works versus why it doesn't, and where it works and where it doesn't. It's just a phenomenon that I don't, it just comes down to potentially, it just comes down to connection and community of like, sometimes things just don't translate on a grander scale. And it's hard to say why that is,
Well, to some extent, especially when it comes to hard rock and metal. And as we're talking the 80s, where this was more apparent to me, I mean, first of all, you got to go, how well does that band in Europe translate to MTV? I think we could all sit back and go, there were a lot of great bands out of the 70s that didn't look good on video.
Mm-hmm.
They were incredible musicians, but they weren't good on the eyes. They weren't good on the eyes to the female fans, which I think everybody realized as MTV started taking off. That's what you want. You need to look as good as you sound. And some bands couldn't pull that off.
Yep.
I mean, I remember it's like a lot of bands, you're like, man, you got the long handlebar mustaches and stuff like that. It's like, that ain't an MTV look, got to clean yourself up. And some of those bands just either didn't or couldn't, or I don't know, maybe they didn't have the label behind them here in the US to help make that happen. But it tends to make me think, again, the fan base over in Europe was less concerned with stuff like that.
Yep.
Again, hey, it's great music. I love the music. And to this day, my pen pal from the 80s, Adrian, he still goes to see, and he's in his 60s, still goes to see so many shows and festivals. Where I get the feeling over here, as we get older here in the US, people start going to less and less shows. I feel like that fever never disappeared for a lot of European fans.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. We should bring Giles back and have him give us
his perspective on it.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I mean, and I guess I'm coming with all of this. It's like, you've got to be so appreciative and thankful for the genre you're in and the fan base you've got. And even though you might be a metal band here in the US, jealous of everything you see over in Europe, that doesn't mean it's over for you in the US. Sure, it's a lot tougher here. It just is. The promoters are tougher on you. The pay is tougher. It's a lot of people say it's easier to tour in Europe because one country is immediately next to another country. And, in going from Northern California to Southern California, you could go through 5 countries in Europe in that same time.
Yeah. The proximity to stuff over there is a little closer. Brexit has kind of made some things complicated. The pricing of things is complicated over there. Like the general cost of doing business over there is very challenging. You'll hear a lot of people that it's really tough to afford to go over there right now, whereas it wasn't that way not that long ago. sort of, pre-pandemic era. Things were a little bit financially easier, I mean, I think for any of the younger independent up and coming, audience we have here, a lot of it is like, I think paying attention to where things are working, because now you have access to so many analytics of where your songs are streaming more, where your fans are congregating more. Like, are they in the US? Are they outside of the US? If they're outside of the US, where is that? Is that Brazil? Is that the UK? Is it Mexico? Is it Germany? Australia? There's so many places where music kind of catches fire, and I think it's advantageous to pay attention to that as early as possible, and kind of see if there's opportunities there to see if you can't get over there, and wherever there is, and just kind of put your toe in the water of other cultures and audiences and stuff. If something's connecting, why is it connecting? And to go over there and see if you can't try and figure it out. But yeah, dude, it's just a weird phenomenon, man. Rock and roll and heavy metal and audience connectivity. It's not science.
Yeah, and I wanted to add, we've been basically talking about Europe here, especially when it comes to heavy metal. You can't ignore like South America. I mean, South
Sure.
America is just as ravenous for their metal bands and their festivals as you would see in Europe. A lot of bands will tour those two regions and completely skip the US.
Sao Paulo, Brazil is the king of heavy metal audiences. I mean, the biggest shows you will ever play as a heavy metal band will be Sao Paulo, Brazil. It is the biggest, most rabid heavy metal fan base in the entire world. And they are so fun.
Yeah. I mean, I remember Wasp went down to South America a couple of years ago for the first time in a number of years. And I remember while they were down there talking to Blackie and Jason, who is his security guy and does the VIP packages. And they were just like, the intensity of the fans and the crowds in Brazil are at a whole nother level than you would experience anywhere in the world. I mean, I think Blackie even was like, there was a moment where it's like the audience just took over singing the song so loud he couldn't even hear himself sing.
That's right.
Or they would sing, they wouldn't even sing the lyrics sometimes. They would sing the guitar solo.
They'll sing so the riffs. Loud. They'll sing the riffs.
Yeah. The riffs. And he's just like the I guess the best word is the intensity of those fans you just don't experience anywhere else.
You do not. It is unbelievable. The amount of enthusiasm and passion that country has for heavy metal. It's remarkable.
And you're, especially in South America, there's a pretty good chance you're playing and you're dealing with people who don't speak English. At least in good portions of Europe, English could be the second language, if not the primary language. Mm-hmm. You go to South America and it's not English.
That's right.
But they they absorb all of these heavy metal songs, all of these metal bands.
Yep.
It's such a small world we live in, but at the same time, it makes you realize how different things can be country to country, region to region. And as you were alluding to, start paying attention to that. You can't sit here and think all you're concerned about is the US, because you might be breaking over in the Scandinavian countries, and you could go over and do 6 shows through Scandinavia. Maybe you don't hit all of Europe, but that's your toe in the water there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you get your toe in the water and do good your first time, it's a very tight-knit community over there, not just amongst fans, but amongst the festival promoters and all that stuff, that it becomes easier for you to expand into other countries and territories then.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, look, if you ever have the opportunity to go down there and play in front of audiences that are that passionate, like it just really makes you feel like I made a good choice. This is why we do this. I think maybe is more of the way to say it. Like this, like you go up there and you go, oh yeah, this is why we do this. This
don't
is why
forget,
we
this
love
is why.
yep. This is why we love what we love.
It also reminds you that rock is not dead.
No.
No matter how many people give you however many reasons to explain why rock is dead, you go there and it's like, oh no, rock and roll, heavy metal is far from dead.
Yep.
Maybe it is in your small town that you are in now, but that doesn't mean it's dead the rest of the world.
Nope. No, man. It's it goes through phases of being cool and not being cool. You know, and that's just anything. Yeah. You know, and but man, it's always going to be a thing for sure. Yeah.
I feel like, you know, probably many years ago, somewhere I saw somebody's like, you know, the appeal of heavy metal to a lot of fans is this is the community that accepts the fans for who they are and for what they like. You don't have to have the best clothes. You don't have to have the fanciest car. You don't have to be from the right side of the tracks. If you love metal, I mean, we both grew up, the KISS Army. It doesn't matter. You can be walking down the street. You got a KISS shirt on and you see somebody with a KISS shirt on. You just say, hey, and you're instantly friends. And you're instantly bonded and you're instantly talking. That's the same whether it's Slayer or Sabbath, you know, anybody.
Right.
There's an instant, I know you're going to be cool.
That's right.
You're not going to pass judgment on me because of the shirt I'm wearing.
No, because I know you have good taste.
Yeah.
And we have good taste in common.
And you're wearing the shirt because you are a fan who likes that music. You're not wearing that shirt because it was the coolest shirt on sale at Hot Topic before you went out to the festival.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, heavy metal has got a community, has always had it. It's always been there. And I have full confidence other genres have that community too. You've got to look and recognize that community.
Yep.
And if you're a musician, how do you become part of that community? Well, just be a fan. I mean, maybe you're not playing the festival. Just go as a fan.
Of course.
Just go hang out in that bowl of 50,000 people and rub elbows and bump shoulders and take it all in. You know, I always say, never forget what it's like to be a fan.
Yep. That's right. I still go to shows and festivals and support and participate as much as possible because, you know, I'm thankful to have a career in this business, but it stems from the fact that I'm a fan first.
Yeah, you got to be a fan first.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're a musician, a booking agent, promoter, label, you've got to always be a fan. You
Yeah.
really do. I'm not saying you've got to like everything you work with, but you got to be a fan of music and all that goes with that.
Yep.
Not be afraid to buy a new t-shirt when you're 60 years old.
Yep.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Blasko, this was another fun discussion.
Fun one.
If anybody wants to leave a comment here, have you been to festivals in Europe? What's your take on a festival in Europe versus festivals in the US or festivals in South America or any country? I mean, whether it's Asia or Australia, I mean, there's festivals happening all over the place. What's your take on the differences? What do you like about them? What draws you to them? That's it. One quick shout out. Thank you to Bruce and Jeremy at Hypebot and Bands in Town for everything you guys continue to always do for the podcast. And that's it. Music Biz Weekly Podcast. We'll see everybody next week.
Every month, thousands of musicians and industry professionals listen to the Music Biz Weekly Podcast. If you have a product or service and would like to reach this audience, get in touch with Michael to discuss sponsorship opportunities.
Voices for the Music Biz Weekly Podcast provided by LarryDavisVoice.com.